The coin in your pocket may look completely ordinary today. You might use it to buy a cup of coffee, toss it into a tip jar, or leave it forgotten in the cup holder of your car. But what if that single quarter wasn't just another piece of spare change? What if it carried a tiny minting mistake so rare that collectors would compete relentlessly to own it? History has proven that overlooked coins can become extraordinary treasures, and while most people spend their change without a second glance, collectors understand that the smallest detail can make the biggest difference. The gap between 25 cents and a fortune often begins with one careful inspection. Before you spend another quarter, you may want to hear this story. La Coin's World Washington Quarter 1979 D coin. Imagine two people standing in the same checkout line. The first empties a handful of coins onto the counter without looking. The second notices a small detail, slips one coin back into their pocket, and later discovers it is far more valuable than its face value. The only difference between those two people is awareness. In the fascinating world of numismatics, knowledge is often worth far more than luck. One coin that has sparked curiosity among collectors is the 1979 Denver Mint Washington Quarter. Identified by the small D mint mark beneath the date, millions of these quarters were produced for circulation. At first glance, there is nothing unusual about them. They feature the familiar portrait of George Washington on the front and the iconic eagle reverse that represented the Washington Quarter series for decades. They were designed to serve everyday commerce, not to become prized collectibles. Yet history has shown that ordinary production years can occasionally hide extraordinary minting mistakes. Every coin begins its journey inside the United States Mint, where massive presses strike blank planchets with incredible force. The process is remarkably precise, but perfection is never guaranteed. Even with advanced quality control, mistakes sometimes escape into circulation. Those mistakes create some of the most desirable treasures in modern coin collecting. Now think about this for a moment. How many quarters are sitting in your house right now? Maybe they're inside an old coffee can, a glass jar in the kitchen, or tucked away in a forgotten drawer. Most people assume every quarter is worth exactly 25 cents. Collectors know that assumption has cost countless people remarkable discoveries. One of the first characteristics specialists examine is the possibility of a double die error. Unlike damage that occurs after a coin enters circulation, a genuine double die is created during the manufacturing of the die itself. As a result, certain design elements may appear noticeably doubled under magnification. Letters, numbers, or parts of Washington's portrait can reveal this fascinating characteristic. Authentic double dies are among the most respected mint errors because they originate during production rather than after the coin leaves the mint. Another highly collectible feature involves die cracks. Minting dies experience tremendous stress as they strike thousands of coins. Over time, tiny fractures can develop within the hardened steel. When those cracks form, they leave raised lines on the coins they produce. Some die cracks are subtle, while others become dramatic enough to create unusual patterns that immediately attract experienced collectors. Every crack represents a physical record of the die slowly reaching the end of its useful life. It is something to consider. If you had a jar of quarters within arm's reach right now, would you stop this video long enough to check them? Many valuable discoveries have been made by people who simply decided to inspect their coins instead of spending them. Collectors also search carefully for off-center strikes. During normal production, the blank planchet must be perfectly positioned before being struck. If alignment shifts even slightly, part of the design may be missing while the remaining image appears dramatically displaced. Coins displaying significant off-center strikes, especially those retaining a visible date, often attract strong collector interest because they clearly demonstrate a mechanical error during production. Clipped planchets create another fascinating category of mint error. Before striking, metal blanks are punched from long strips of metal. Occasionally, the punching process overlaps incorrectly, leaving a blank with a curved section missing. When struck, the resulting coin displays an unmistakable crescent-shaped clip. Let's pause for a second. Pocket change has a funny way of hiding in plain sight. We search for lost car keys, misplaced phones, and forgotten wallets, yet most people never think twice about the handful of coins rattling around in their pockets. Sometimes the smallest object receives the least attention while holding the greatest surprise. Condition is equally important. Two identical quarters with the same minting characteristics can differ enormously in value simply because one remained untouched while the other circulated for years. Professional grading services evaluate coins using detailed numerical scales that consider luster, strike quality, surface preservation, and overall eye appeal. A coin preserved in exceptional mint state condition may command a substantial premium compared with an otherwise identical example showing everyday wear. This leads us to one of the most intriguing ideas in modern coin collecting, the ghost coin. A ghost coin is not mythical. Instead, it describes a coin that collectors know exists but rarely see offered for sale. Some varieties disappear into private collections for decades. Others surface only once in a generation before vanishing again. Their scarcity creates excitement because every appearance becomes an event. Scarcity has always driven value. Whether discussing fine art, luxury automobiles, vintage watches, or historic coins, collectors compete most aggressively for items that almost never become available. The fewer examples that exist, the stronger demand often becomes. Rare coins are more than pieces of metal. They represent history, craftsmanship, survival, and exclusivity. Authentication plays a critical role in determining value. Serious collectors rely on respected third-party grading companies to verify that a coin is genuine and that any claimed mint error actually originated during production. Certification provides confidence for buyers and sellers alike. Without expert authentication, even an unusual-looking coin may struggle to attract serious interest in the marketplace. You've probably seen headlines claiming that certain rare quarters could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, with figures reaching as high as $791,000. It is important to understand what those numbers represent. Extraordinary auction prices are typically associated with exceptionally rare, authenticated mint errors or one-of-a-kind examples in outstanding condition. An ordinary 1979 Denver Washington quarter does not automatically carry such a value. However, authentic and highly significant mint errors have demonstrated that remarkable coins can command astonishing prices when rarity, condition, and collector demand come together. Now ask yourself one simple question. When was the last time you actually examined a quarter before spending it? Chances are, it's been years. Yet experienced collectors know that every coin deserves at least a quick inspection because remarkable discoveries often appear where nobody expects them. The excitement of coin collecting comes from possibility. Valuable coins continue to circulate every day. They emerge from inherited collections, estate sales, bank rolls, old piggy banks, and forgotten jars of change. Many spend years passing unnoticed through countless hands before finally reaching someone who recognizes their significance. Today's marketplace has also transformed the hobby. Online auctions allow collectors from across the country and around the world to compete for exceptional pieces. Increased visibility means that truly scarce coins receive attention from a much larger audience than ever before. When several determined collectors pursue the same rare coin, bidding can rise dramatically. Patience remains one of the greatest strengths in numismatics. Successful collectors understand that knowledge grows over time. Every remarkable discovery begins with curiosity. Every legendary collection starts with a single coin. Every expert was once a beginner who simply decided to look a little closer than everyone else. That is what makes coin collecting unlike almost any other hobby. The next important discovery could happen during an ordinary day while buying lunch, filling your gas tank, or receiving change from a local store. Perhaps the greatest lesson hidden within the story of the 1979 Denver Washington quarter is that value often hides beneath familiarity. We become so accustomed to seeing the same coins every day that we stop paying attention. Yet history repeatedly reminds us that extraordinary treasures frequently disguise themselves as ordinary objects. The next time you hear the sound of loose change jingling in your pocket, remember that every coin carries a story. Most are simply part of everyday commerce. A very small number become historic collectibles because of tiny imperfections created in a fraction of a second inside the mint decades ago. Those imperfections transformed ordinary coins into lasting pieces of American numismatic history. Your next quarter may never become a six-figure rarity, but you'll never know unless you take a closer look. That single habit has already rewarded countless collectors who refused to assume that every coin was ordinary. In a world where hidden opportunities often go unnoticed, curiosity remains your greatest advantage. And this journey into rare coins is far from over. In the next story, we'll uncover another elusive American coin whose mysterious minting error has left even seasoned collectors searching for decades. Some believe a few examples may still be hiding in everyday circulation, waiting for the right person to recognize them before they disappear forever. De 1989 de Mint Mark Monticello Thomas Washington Quarter Coin. It sounds like the kind of coin most people would spend without a second thought. It could disappear into a vending machine, get tossed into a tip jar, or vanish into a cash register forever. But what if one ordinary-looking quarter wasn't ordinary at all? What if a single mistake made at the mint transformed it into a coin that collectors would fight over, with rumors of extraordinary values reaching as high as $781,000 under the right combination of rarity, condition, and authentication? The truth is that history has proven time and again that tiny details can create life-changing discoveries. The difference between a spender and a collector is often nothing more than 5 seconds of curiosity. One person spends a quarter without looking. Another flips it over, notices something unusual, and unknowingly holds a piece of American numismatic history. Before this story is over, you may never look at your pocket change the same way again. Every year, millions of coins leave the United States Mint. Almost all of them perform the simple job they were designed for. They circulate. They buy groceries, coffee, fuel, and everyday necessities. But every so often, something slips through quality control. A die cracks. A strike happens off-center. A design element doubles. A planchet is defective. In those rare moments, a coin stops being just money and becomes something far more valuable. These mistakes are not supposed to exist, yet they do. That is exactly why collectors spend decades searching for them. Now here's something worth thinking about. How many jars of loose change are sitting somewhere in your house right now? Maybe there's one in the kitchen, another in the garage, or perhaps an old coffee can filled with coins collected over decades. Most people assume every quarter is worth exactly 25 cents. But experienced collectors know better. They understand that hidden among billions of ordinary coins can be one extraordinary survivor. The coin often associated with discussions like this is the 1989 Denver Mint Washington Quarter. It carries the familiar portrait of George Washington on the obverse and the iconic eagle reverse used on quarters before the state quarters program began in 1999. Produced at the Denver Mint and identified by its small D mint mark, millions entered circulation. On paper, there was nothing remarkable about it. Yet numismatics has always been a hobby where paper statistics rarely tell the whole story. Collectors don't simply chase dates. They chase anomalies. They search for the impossible. The tiniest production error can completely transform the value of an otherwise common coin. This is where the legend surrounding certain 1989 Denver quarters begins. Imagine examining one under magnification and noticing that the lettering appears doubled. Not blurry from wear, but genuinely doubled because of the die itself. A true double die error is created during the manufacturing of the die, meaning every coin struck from that die carries the same unusual characteristics. These errors are among the most respected and heavily studied varieties in American coin collecting because they represent genuine mint production anomalies rather than damage after circulation. Now pause for a second. If you have a jar of quarters somewhere nearby, this might be the perfect moment to remember exactly where you left it. Thousands of collectors have made remarkable discoveries simply because they decided to look before spending. Another feature that sends specialists into detective mode is the possibility of die cracks. During repeated striking, enormous pressure weakens the steel dies. Eventually, tiny fractures develop. Those fractures transfer raised lines onto every coin produced afterward. While many die cracks are relatively minor, dramatic examples can become highly collectible, especially when they create unusual visual effects that distinguish the coin from ordinary examples. Then there are off-center strikes. Normally, a blank planchet is perfectly aligned before the dice strike it. But if alignment shifts, part of the design may be missing while the remaining image appears dramatically displaced. Depending on the percentage of the off-center strike and whether the date remains visible, values can increase dramatically. Every off-center strike tells the story of a split-second mechanical failure inside the mint. Collectors also examine clipped planchets, where part of the metal blank is missing before striking. These crescent-shaped errors immediately catch the eye because the coin simply doesn't look right. Their unusual appearance makes them favorites among error collectors. Perhaps even more fascinating are wrong planchet errors. Imagine a Washington quarter accidentally struck on a planchet intended for another denomination. Instantly, the weight, size, color, and appearance become completely different from what the mint intended. These mistakes are exceptionally rare because modern production lines include multiple inspection stages. Yet history has shown that a small number still escape into circulation. It is a question almost nobody asks themselves while paying for lunch. What if the quarter you're about to hand over has already caught the attention of a collector somewhere else? It sounds unbelievable until you remember that countless valuable coins were discovered decades after they entered circulation. Many spent years passing unnoticed through cash drawers before someone finally recognized what everyone else had overlooked. Condition is another critical factor. Professional grading services evaluate coins using a detailed numerical scale. The difference between a circulated example and a nearly perfect mint state specimen can be astonishing. Under high magnification, experts examine luster, strike quality, surface preservation, and eye appeal. One tiny contact mark can lower a grade, while an untouched example preserved for decades can command extraordinary premiums. This is where the phrase ghost coin often enters collector conversations. A ghost coin isn't necessarily supernatural. Instead, it's a coin that seems almost impossible to locate despite persistent searching. Some varieties are known from only a handful of authenticated examples. Others appear briefly at auction before disappearing into long-term private collections, sometimes remaining unseen for decades. Scarcity drives markets. Whether discussing classic cars, fine art, luxury watches, or rare coins, supply and demand always shape prices. When collectors compete for an item that almost never appears for sale, bidding becomes emotional. Logic often gives way to passion. Wealthy buyers aren't simply purchasing metal. They're purchasing exclusivity, history, and ownership of something very few people can ever possess. And here's something many beginners overlook. Authentication matters just as much as rarity. A coin believed to have an error isn't enough. Serious buyers want confirmation from respected third-party grading companies. Certification provides confidence that the error is genuine, the grade is accurate, and the coin has not been altered after leaving the mint. Without authentication, extraordinary claims rarely translate into extraordinary prices. At this point, you might be wondering where headlines mentioning values approaching $781,000 come from. It's important to understand how numbers like these emerge in the numismatic world. The highest auction prices are typically achieved only by exceptionally rare coins with extraordinary provenance, flawless preservation, or historically significant minting errors. These headline figures represent the upper edge of the market rather than the typical value of an ordinary 1989 Denver Washington quarter. Still, history repeatedly demonstrates that authentic, unique mint errors can sell for astonishing sums when the right collectors compete. It is another challenge. The next quarter you receive in change, don't spend it immediately. Turn it over. Check the mint mark. Look carefully at the lettering. Examine the edges. Search for doubling, unusual cracks, missing design elements, or anything that simply feels different. 5 seconds of curiosity costs nothing, yet it has rewarded collectors more times than most people realize. One of the greatest attractions of coin collecting is that the hunt never truly ends. Unlike buried treasure hidden beneath ancient ruins, American coins continue circulating every day. Valuable discoveries emerge from bank rolls, estate sales, inherited collections, forgotten piggy banks, and ordinary cash transactions. Every coin has a story, but only a handful possess the combination of rarity, error, condition, and demand that transforms them into legends. Markets also evolve. As new collectors enter the hobby, competition increases. Digital auction platforms allow buyers from across the country and around the world to compete instantly. A coin that once attracted only local attention can now ignite international bidding wars. Increased visibility often strengthens prices for the rarest certified examples. Of course, patience remains one of the collector's greatest strengths. Finding a remarkable coin isn't always about luck. It often comes from education, persistence, and the willingness to inspect what everyone else ignores. Experienced numismatists spend years learning subtle diagnostics that separate ordinary coins from extraordinary discoveries. Knowledge becomes the most valuable tool in the search. And perhaps that's the greatest lesson hidden inside every coin collection. Wealth isn't always created by finding something expensive. Sometimes it's created by recognizing value long before anyone else does. History rewards those who notice details others overlook. So before you dismiss another quarter as ordinary, remember this story. Somewhere, a rare mint error is still waiting to be discovered. Somewhere, an overlooked coin sits inside a forgotten collection, a dusty drawer, or a jar filled with decades of pocket change. Its owner may have no idea what they're holding. But one careful examination could change everything. The world of rare coins continues to surprise collectors every year, and the next remarkable discovery could belong to anyone willing to pay attention. Your next trip to the grocery store, your next bank withdrawal, or your next handful of change could contain a coin that most people would never recognize. That's what makes this hobby so exciting. Every transaction carries possibility. And this is only the beginning. Because if you think the story of the 1989 Denver, Washington quarter is incredible, wait until you discover the mysterious coin that has left even veteran collectors searching for decades, a single piece whose rarity, history, and astonishing auction results have turned it into one of the greatest modern treasures ever to escape into circulation. You won't want to miss that story.